Good afternoon and welcome everybody. My name is Biserka Gajdarska, and together with my friend and colleague Agatha Reingruber from the Freie Universität in Berlin, we are the organizers of this series of lectures on the North Pontic region. Today's speaker is Dr. Emil Nankov, currently works as an assistant professor at the National Institute of Archaeology at the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. He received his BA and MA in archaeology from Sofia University in Bulgaria and his PhD in history of art and archaeology from Cornell University in 2009 on the topic of Forakokria, excuse my pronunciation, aspects of military presence in Hellenistic Opotunian Lokris. During his doctoral research, Emil was a regular and associate member of the American School of Classic Studies at Athens from 2005 to 7, and was part of the Excellence Cluster Topoi at the Free University in Berlin in 2009. After completing his PhD, he was the Archaeology Program Officer from 2009 to 14 and acting academic director from 2014 to 2017 at the American Research Center in Sofia, teaching at the International Summer Institute in Bulgaria in both 2010 and 2013. He was awarded a fellowship as a Getty Scholar at the Getty Research Institute in 2020. Emil has a widespread fieldwork and excavation experience in Bulgarian and other projects. He was appointed as the director of the Archaeological Field School at 2 projects in Bulgarian, Heraclea Sintica from 2012 to 2014, and Pantikopolis Field School from 2012 to 2017. He is currently a member of the excavation team of Emporium Pistirus. His main scholarly interests focus on urbanization, warfare, and the economy of ancient Thrace. Nankov is the editor of 2 important collections, Sandansky and its Territory during Prehistory, Antiquity, and the Middle Ages in 2015, and Papers of the American Research Center in Sofia, Volume 3. He has also edited a volume on Heraclea Sintica, from Hellenistic polis to Roman civitas in 2015, and a companion to Asian trains in the same year. He has contributed to the Jan Busek Festschrift in 2018, and the companion to Greek warfare on Thracian warfare in 2021. His talk today focuses on the theme of his latest book, and it is entitled Unravelling the Mystery of a Humble Weapon, Sling Bullet Points on the Military Campaigns of Philip II and Alexander III in Thrace. Emil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Biserka, for this nice presentation. My talk today will focus on a book project that I've been dealing for the last 7 or 8 years, and hopefully it will be finished by the end of this year. So I'll appreciate, of course, any comments or feedback from the audience after the lecture. I think it froze. Does it change?
Writing.
Sorry?
No, it's frozen. Yes, it hasn't changed.
Okay.
Maybe start again from the beginning, like.
Yeah, I'm trying to escape.
Okay.
Hitting escape button to escape, but it doesn't do it. Maybe I'll stop sharing.
Yes, it works now. Yes, great, thank you.
Now it's fine, okay. The sling, or Swendonian Greek and funda in Latin, belongs to the class of ranged or missile weapons. For this reason, it can be considered, along with the bow, composite in nature, and by no means is it a simple weapon, contrary to the common opinion, for it needs projectiles in order to fulfill its function in hunting and war. Thus, a proper study would require an interdisciplinary approach, needing to address both the weapon and its missiles, which, as we shall see, possess different survival rates in the archaeological record. From a modern perspective, this poses certain challenges for scholars who attempt to write consistent accounts of the sling, because it necessitates the use of a wider range of sources. Traditionally, these include archaeological finds, iconographic monuments, ancient written accounts, and ethnographic parallels. The simplest form, called a hand sling, consists of a single, non-elastic thong of leather, a string of sinew, or a cord of twisted wool, hair, or hemp, which could be either widened in the middle or furnished with a pouch, or, quote, triple ballet carrier, end quote, according to Livy, in Latin, triplex scutale, to receive the projectile. The one end of the cord is knotted, which constitutes the so-called release arm, and the other one has a loop called the retention arm, quote unquote. These arms are called takola in Greek and habenai in Latin. The key identifier of the sling in Greek texts is the word sphendoni, which refers to the presence of a pouch and by extension connotes the weapon itself. This is why when sphendoni appears in the Homeric poems, it actually describes woolen bandage used for the treatment of a wound. Indirectly, another passage describes the use of the hand sling by the Locrians. The first direct reference to sphendoni in the sense of fragment 3. At the same time, dates the compound sphendonitoi or sling, which describes the inhabitants of Metone sent off by the Eretrians in 734 BC, as told by Plutarch, while Strabo, Pliny, and Vegetius clearly disagreed about the invention of the sling by attributing it to the Phoenicians, the Baleares, and the Aetolians. The oldest written account of the hand sling comes from biblical literature, the most popular of which being that of David and Goliath. Although the sling is often thought of as a cheap and inexpensive weapon to make, being fashioned of organic materials such as plant fiber, wool, and sinews, the manufacturer still has to conform to certain specifications in order to successfully achieve its effectiveness as a weapon. It also requires some knowledge about the limitations and the potential of the materials used. A major advantage was their pliancy, so that cords may be produced by braiding, plaiting, or even weaving. The greatest variety is attested in the manufacture of pouches or bullet carriers, which can be woven or split in three through braiding. It is a misconception, though, to attribute the success of the ancient sling as a powerful weapon to the elasticity of its materials, unlike the modern slingshot, whose projecting principle relies entirely on the elastic properties of the rubber. Albeit indirectly, Homer says that the Locrians possessed slings of well-plated sheep's wool. In historical times, Xenophon witnessed account about the Rhodians in his army having to plait, in Greek plekein, slings from sinews, ta nevra, implies that in ad hoc situations, the sling could be manufactured much faster and from different materials. Virgil writes of both a smooth leather tongue and of a sling made of hemp, whereas Vegetius says that the slings were made out of linen. Strabo recounts that the Balearic sling is made out of black tufted rush or of hair or of sinus. Antipater of Sidon writes about well-wound thongs. In the database for my book project, I have compiled most numerous is the group of bullets made of lead, which consists of 386 specimens, of which 43 are fragmentary, showing traces of damage. This is also the most homogeneous group in terms of chronology, which in its entirety dates to the late classical early Hellenistic period. With this substantial data set, there are three basic divisions based on the methods by which the projectiles were acquired. The largest share belongs to 176 specimens discovered during archaeological excavations. Second are the 144 chance finds for which the information about provenance is alleged, whereas the details regarding context are uncertain. Finally comes the group of 66 specimens which are entirely stripped of provenance information. The projectiles were all cast in bivalve matrices, which resulted in greater uniformity and a quite prominent dominance of the almond and olive shapes. In the former, the specimens are wider than they are thick, thereby resembling an almond, whereas in the latter case, the width and the thickness are equal, which closely resembles an olive. The above distinction is evident in the cross-section. In the almond type, it is oval, almost elliptical, whereas the olive type has a circular form. In other cases, the projectiles have more pronounced lateral sides and have a distinctly rhomboid cross-section. A considerably smaller number of projectiles are better described in terms of the typology of Thomas Völling, particularly type 1 and 3, most of which are dated to the late Republican period. The length of the bullets varies from 21 to 57 millimeters, with one outlier which is 72 millimeters. The width falls in the range of between 12 and 26 millimeters, and the thickness gravitates within 6 and 25 millimeters. The projectile's weight range is between 14 and 149 grams, which I have divided into 5 types. Type 1 has a weight range between 14 and 24 grams, includes 43 specimens with an average of 20 grams. Type 2 between 24 and 34 grams, encompasses 184 grams specimens with an average of 29 grams. Type 3 between 34 and 44 grams features 106 specimens with an average of 38 grams. Type 4 between 44 and 99 grams includes 39 specimens with an average of 56 grams. And type 5 between 100 and 149 grams has 13 specimens with an average of 116 grams. The arrangement by weight is important since it may provide chronological and cultural distinction among different weight types, which signify particular preference for different ethnic groups. Thus, Greek projectiles' weight is based on fractions of the Attic mina, which equals 436 grams, which is expressed in drachmas. 1 mina equals 100 drachmas, whereas the Roman ones adhere to the fractions of the libra, which equals 327 grams, which is expressed in untia. 1 libra equals 12 untia. Statistical tabulations have shown that the weight of Greek and Etruscan projectiles average between 30 and 40 grams, whereas that of the Roman ones peaks within 50 and 60 grams. Similarly, the excavated samples from Olynthus and Argylos range between 18 35 grams and 26 and 50 grams, whereas the extensive list of Roman sling bullets from Thomas Fjölling's study emerge as heavier, with an average weight between 40 and 70 grams. For example, our lighter projectiles of between types 1 and 3 are noticeably more numerous, reaching a combined total of 333 specimens, whereas those of type 4 and 5 between 44 and 149 grams, which are also the heaviest, amount only to 53 specimens. This means that we can identify type between 1 and 3 as Greek, weighing between 6 and 10 drachms, which are also 6 times more numerous than those of type 4 and 5, which are apparently Roman, weighing between 2 and 6 untia. This presentation also attempts to articulate in greater detail the significance of inscribed sling bullets in reconstructing historical events of potential importance for understanding of Macedonian expansion into Thrace during the reigns of Philip II and Alexander III. Sling bullets can be profitably utilized as markers of military mobility abroad. A worthy object of study by themselves, yet still underappreciated, projectiles provide an unexpected opportunity to integrate archaeology and history through the looking glass of, to quote Graham Shipley, quote unquote, the small things remembered. The sizable sample of inscribed sling bullets from Thrace reasserts once again the importance of sling ammunition in tracking down military operations abroad, which can be profitably utilized as a tool for generating historical narrative, supplementing in a unique manner the traditional authority of written records. By and large, the study of Macedonian expansion in Thrace has been dominated by historians and philologists, who typically embrace the written records as a dominant source of information about the movement of the Macedonian armies under Philip II and Alexander III. A culmination point for these strictly historical narratives is the attempt to reconstruct the possible routes by which they penetrated beyond the northern frontier. The results are usually mapped out, from which it has emerged that river valleys, particularly Hebros and Tonsos, as well as the West Black Sea coast, assume the greatest priority. In addition, numismatic evidence, mostly coin hoards, is sometimes considered alongside the literary sources, even though the number of those from the type of Philip II and Alexander III is substantially smaller in comparison to those dating to the Hellenistic period. In turn, the regional analysis of excavation coins, lifetime Macedonian bronzes in particular, contains important clues for tracking down military mobility. Archaeological data, on the other hand, is seldom adduced into discussion because the material evidence can be sporadic, fragmentary, or without a context, thereby making it more difficult to interpret in a straightforward manner. There are some exceptions, though. Seriation of import of transport amphorae, for example, often detects sharp chronological breaks in established trade patterns indicative of socio-political disruptions caused specifically by military crisis. Interpretation of stratified deposits containing military equipment from urban centers and smaller settlements in the interior have illustrated the physicality of siege warfare during the Macedonian expansion. Among the array of offensive weapons, the inscribed sling bullets that have recently come to light from Thrace, which by virtue of their complex identity as an artifact may flesh out what the often abbreviated historical accounts can only sketch, has gradually led to a paradigm shift. For instance, several articles have attempted to chart the logistics of the Macedonian armies in Thrace by utilizing the potential offered by sling ammunition. Although the precise chronological sequence of the Macedonian military mobility can be debated, it remains unquestionable that the epigraphic habit on lead projectiles can furnish additional information which is otherwise absent from the written accounts. So I'll continue with several examples, which I think are very important for our discussion, which is directly related to the Macedonian expansion in Thrace, which started off with the reign of Philip and continued with the northern campaign of Alexander a few years after that. So I start off with 8 projectiles of almond shaped, inscribed ΦΙΛΙΠΠΟΥ, securely attributed to Philip II. 2 specimens with the same legend, have been long known from the Haskovo region, which according to the museum records were discovered as chance finds in the locality Karabulu, situated on the right bank of Marica River east of the village of Yabokovo. Furthermore, the excavations at the prehistoric settlement near Yabokovo and the field surveys in the area yielded black glazed pottery of the late 5th century BC, amphora, as well as coins of Maronea, the so-called early period, and Philip II. In addition, the material from the excavated quote-unquote field of pits showed that the settlement existed from the late 5th until the early 3rd century BC. Thus, the alternative suggestion that the projectiles might have come from a site in the vicinity of the village of Stalevo, situated circa 4 kilometers west of Yaboko, remains questionable. During rescue excavations of a medieval settlement situated on the left bank of Marica River at the locality Ortaborun near the village of Jerusalimovo, again in the Haskovo district, 5 more specimens of the same type were found. All projectiles were retrieved via metal detector from the eastern part of the site. In addition, 7 bronze coins of Maronea from the 4th century BC were also found from various places during the excavations, although no particular correlation between the projectiles and the coins has been observed. None of these finds, however, which are published here for the first time, has been mentioned in the publication of the excavation results that has since appeared. The largest collection of projectiles inscribed with the name of Philip II were found at Olynthos in the Chalkidiki Peninsula and Mekiberna, where a total of 15 specimens are identified of the first type and only 1 example of the second. Several others have entered into private collections, but most certainly originate from Olynthos and Mekiberna. The latter type, however, is slightly different from the chance find from the region of Goce Delchev, since the name is inscribed in a retrograde manner. 3 more projectiles of the same second type ΦΙΛΙΠΠΟΥ spearhead, together with projectiles of Glaukias and Mykinas, were also found during the excavations at Argylos. Melvin Romero has even suggested that the spearhead on the reverse might be of the Sarissa type. In addition to the sizable assemblage from Olynthos, an unspecified number of projectiles of the first type have also been published from Stagira, Eane, and the region of Edessa. Rather intriguing is the case of the projectiles of almond shape described paroda, normally combined with the pictorial symbol on the reverse, wasp, coiled snake, spearhead, scorpion, or thunderbolt. Hundreds of specimens have been known from private collections, chance finds, and electronic auctions. Despite the presence of 5 different symbols which alternate on the reverse, the projectiles' weight exhibit little variation within the range of 29-34 grams. Many of them show traces of battle damage. Evgeny Paunov published 44 projectiles, of which 12 were non-inscribed from the collection Dmitry Dimitrov, without photographs. And he divided them into 5 types based on the reverse symbol, 9 with wasp, 11 with scorpion, 3 with coil snake, 3 with spearhead, and 2 with thunderbolt. They all originate allegedly from the fortified site of Archangel Mikhail near the village of Dubnica, municipality of Goce Delchev. 3 more examples, 2 with spearhead and 1 with coiled snake, with rather worn-off lettering, have come to light from the collection Vatevi, whose interpretation depended on the parallels from Paunov's sample. I was unable to confirm Paunov's reading of the name Amintas on the 3 projectiles with spearhead on the reverse, and I suspect that they should all be attributed to those inscribed parodas, having been misread as Aminta. The reading of the name as parodas with a sigma in front, proposed by Evgeny Paunov and later accepted by Metody Manov and Narcis Torbov, was modified by the Alexandru Avram based on a specimen which appeared on an electronic auction. The 23 examples I present here, of which 16 originate from Dubnica, 1 from Razgrad region, 4 from collection Vatevi, and 1 from National Museum of History in Sofia, confirm Alexandru Avram's suggestion beyond any doubt. Thus, the reading of the name as paroda should be now considered secure. At present, the main core of projectiles comes almost exclusively from Dubnica, where recent excavations have brought to light several more specimens, whose number is likely to increase in the future. Since the publication of Avram's compendium in 1213, an overlooked projectile has emerged from the region of Amphipolis. Even though it is a chance find, it may well belong to the large group of already published specimens found in the town and the necropolis, which are interpreted as archaeological evidence confirming Diodoros' account, according to which Amphipolis was besieged and taken by Philip II in 357 BC. The description of the projectile in question, recorded as you see it here on the screen, that's from the publication by Dimitri Omido and Elpida Kusmido, and also accompanied by a cold snake on the reverse, which I received as information from Elpida Kusmido, most definitely should be read as paroda. This link with Amphipolis would tip the scales in favor of the hypothesis that parodas was a general of Philip II and less likely one active during the time of the Diadochi, as has already been suggested, or that of Antigonus Gonatas, Philip V, or Perseus. For the most part, it remains uncertain whether the projectiles inscribed paroda can be attributed to military operations of Philip II or associated with the northern campaign of Alexander III in 335 BC. In light of the newly adduced comparandum from Amphipolis, however, the former option seems more likely, in spite of the lack of historical information about Philip II being active in the Middle Nestos Valley. In any case, the future publication of archaeological and numismatic data from the ongoing excavations at Dubnica will demonstrate the magnitude of the destruction caused by the historically unrecorded Macedonian siege at the site, and whether it took place during the reign of Philip II or that of Alexander III. 8 projectiles of almond shape inscribed with Namer or Na, all of which unpublished, are included on this slide. 4 chance finds from the region of Elhovo in southeastern Bulgaria, 2 from Heraclea Sintica, the Struma Valley, 1 specimen from Kozi Gramadi, and another from Emporion Pistyros. two regional clusters have so far yielded a substantial number of projectiles with the pronounced dominance of the type Namer, and a couple of outliers with the legend NA blank, from Torone, for example. Up until recently, the sample from Chalkidiki region, with a total of 12 projectiles distributed among 5 sites, namely Olynthus 3, Torone 4, Potidaia 1, Pydna 1, and Amphipolis 3, was considered the area with the highest concentration of such projectiles. A steady stream of chance finds and excavational data have recently emerged from the Republic of Northern Macedonia, which are spread over a greater number of sites in considerably larger quantities. A total of 21 projectiles have been published from several sites: Tsarevi Kuli near Strumica 6, Lokvenikale 7, Stibera 4, Visoka 1, Busikale 1, Bistrica 1, Bistrica near Bitula 1. A multitude of other examples surface regularly on electronic auctions or are published as part of museum collections. Ever since the first discoveries at Olynthus, the reading of the inscription was problematic and fraught with difficulties. Robinson, for example, took it as an abbreviated ethnic name of Mekiberna. He restored it as Mekibernion, belonging to the citizens of Mekiberna, which was the harbor town of Olynthus. And his suggestion has met with little or no approval. Others argued that the legend should be read instead Merna, in which case the anthroponym was restored as a genitive of a name ending with alpha and sigma, something like Mernas. The excavation of data from Torone, however, led to the idea that the projectiles with Namer and Na were an abbreviated genitive form of the name Namertas or Namertidas, who was identified as a military commander serving under Philip II. The identification can be now considered secure on account of cross-referencing with excavational data containing projectiles inscribed with names of historically attested high-ranking officers of Philip II. Thus, Namerta's projectiles are found in association with that of Hipponicus and Cleobulus, who is expressly attested as a general of Philip II in 341 BC by Demosthenes at Olynthus and Strumica, in Tsarevi Kuli in the Republic of Northern Macedonia. Furthermore, Namerta's projectiles are also discovered together with those of Cleobulus at Olynthus, Amphipolis, and Strumica, whose association with the army of Philip II has been taken for granted with Robinson's excavations at Olynthus. So, moving next to Alexander, a total of 14 projectiles of almond shape coming from collection Vatevi bear the legend Alexandru Philippou, belonging to Alexander, son of Philip, of which 12 specimens have been published by Metodi Manov and Narcis Torbov in 2016. Here I have a full documentation for these bullets and present 2 more examples from the same collection. Rather unusually, the personal name is rendered with the patronymic Philippou, which makes the identification with Alexander III quite secure. Perhaps this was a way to distinguish him from Alexander the Lynkestian, who was a strategos of Thrace between 339 and 335. Recent excavations on the Acropolis of the Lycian town of Patara, at the Tepejik Acropolis in the North Bastion, have brought to light another specimen with the same legend, identical metrology and weight, published by Turkish colleagues, Dündar and Şahın. Most importantly, the stratigraphic data from the North Bastion, among which were found arrowheads and projectile points, confirms that Patara, together with Pinara and Xanthos, was taken by force by Alexander in 334 BC, according to Arrian his analysis. The bullet from Patara confirms beyond doubt that the now 14 sling bullets found in northeastern Thrace should be firmly associated with the Thracian campaign of Alexander III in 335 BC, as suggested by Manov and Torbov. In short, slingers in his army at the time were equipped with ammunition of this particular type, inscribed of that Alexander, the son of Philip. Sling bullets of Omonchamp inscribed Basile Alexandre. It's an abbreviation of the ones belonging to Basileus Alexandros, are chance finds from the village of Preselka in Shumen district in northeastern Bulgaria, situated circa 55 kilometers northwest of Odessos on the Black Sea. Another specimen with unknown provenance was recently published from the collection of the Numismatic Museum in Russe. They have identical metrology and an average weight of 39 grams. 3 specimens are known from the region of Olbia. 2 more were reported from sites in the hinterland of Istros, and 1 was discovered during the excavations at Oumetum in Constanța, present-day Romania. Although, based on the presence of the royal title, Basileus Alexandru, they have been attributed to Alexander III. It is widely accepted that they were used during the tenure of Zupirion, known from the written sources as Prefectus Ponti and Tracie Prepositus. 2 lead projectiles inscribed Strati Alexand or Stratigos Alexandros are known from Preselka and Apollonia Pontica. A singular example originates from the same area in Dobruja, but closer to Istros, whereas another specimen was discovered at another Romanian site on the Black Sea coast. The legend reads Stratigu Alexandru and is translated as of the Strategos Alexander. As in the case of Basileus Alexandru type, they share identical dimensions and an average weight of 37 grams. 2 more sling bullets of the 2 types discussed above, sold at an auction in London, were most certainly found in northeastern Bulgaria, according to Avram. With the new data in hand, the disastrous campaign of Zupirion now assumes a larger scale, as the sling bullets inscribed with the names of Basileus Alexander and his strategos Alexander the Lynkestian undoubtedly charted the retreat of his army through the Getic lands after his unsuccessful siege of Olbia. The last example that I'm going to talk about belong to 7 projectiles of Omonchamp inscribed Turbaco and Turbacu. Exhibit consistent weight range between 34-39 grams, distributed widely among several sites, of which 3 are excavated and 4 are chance finds. The specimen from Pistiros, unfortunately, did not belong to any feature on the site, was published first. But significantly, it is generally associated with projectiles of Cleobulus and Glaucias from the same site. 2 chance finds originate from the village of Vudica, Varna district, situated circa 25 kilometers northwest of Odessos, and 1 from the vicinity of Olbia, together with 2 projectiles inscribed Basile Alexandre. 1 specimen was recently found at Apollonia Pontica in an extramurus complex at the locality Messerite, on a road serving a set of buildings which were abandoned by the 3rd quarter of the 4th century BC. There is 1 more chance finds from Apollonia discovered on the beach of Sozopol in 1992, together with another specimen inscribed Stratigou Alexandru, and another from the region of Razgrad, together with 2 specimens inscribed Paroda. The last specimen was found in a burial associated with the classical Hellenistic settlement at the locality Kostadin Cheshma, during the excavations conducted by Stefan Demyanov and Petr Bolobanov in 1985. The number of sites yielding bullets of that name, however, is likely to expand in the future. While it is difficult to establish whether the two renderings of the name in the genitive have chronological significance, in any case, they certainly indicate the use of different matrices. To be clear, on some specimens, the area of the ending showed traces of battle damage. Hence, the evidence about the different case endings remains inconclusive. Turbacus remains an enigmatic figure who, on the basis of the suffix akos, which Avram thought of Persian origin, has recently led to his identification as a Scythian who served under Philip II. He was recruited in his army after Philip dealt with the Scythian king Athens in 339 BC. The discovery of the projectile from Olbia has led to the idea that Turbacus was serving in the Macedonian army of Alexander III Strategos Zupirion and had nothing to do with the campaigns of Philip and Lysimachus. Thus, in total, they are interpreted in the context of Zupirion's unsuccessful siege of Olbia and the disastrous retreat of his army through the region of Dobruja, dated within 325 BC. The idea that Turbacus was the general of Levcon II from the mid-3rd century BC and somehow involved in the wars between Cavaros and Antiochus II, which was recently advanced by Metodimanov and others, seems inconsistent with the earlier chronology of the excavation of projectiles acquired on the basis of stratified deposit, for example, from Pistyrus, Constantinchishma, and Apollonia, from the site Meserite. For the time being, the distribution pattern of Turbacus projectiles in Thrace shows that he operated both south of the Balkan Range in Pistyrus, as well as along the West Black Sea coast in Budica, Constantinchishma, and Apollonia, and in the interior of northeast Bulgarian, Razgrad region. The fact that the projectiles from Pistyrus and Razgrad are attested together with those of military commanders serving under Philip, most notably Cleobulus, Glaucias, and Parodas, would suggest that his career started off during the Thracian campaign of Philip II between 342 and 340 BC. That is this decade earlier than is commonly admitted. It is not impossible to imagine that he also participated in the clash between Philip II and Athens in 339, as is illustrated by the finds from Vudica, Apollonia, and Constantinchishma. Perhaps it is not a coincidence that the imports of Tassian amphora abruptly stopped shortly before 340 BC as a result of the Macedonian expansion in the area during the reign of Philip II. 10 years later, Turbacus apparently continued to offer his services during the tenure of the Strategos Zupirion in the context of the Macedonian military operations against the Scythians, which culminated in the siege of Olbia in 331-325 BC. This is best illustrated by the fact that Turbacus projectiles have cropped up as chance finds at Olbia and Apollonia, this time in association with those inscribed Basileus Alexandro and Strategou Alexandro, now commonly attributed to Zupirion. And just as a short summary before I finish, I'd like to point out several interesting ramifications that have stemmed over the years of research. So far, I've talked about the idea that we can track down the movement of army in the interior of Thrace during the reign of Philip and Alexander and the Diadochi by looking at the spatial distribution of sling bullets. So I've realized that the rivers have been a major gateway into Thrace. But what I've also ended up discovering is that very often the sites that we had no idea existed decades ago, or some of them were actually identified because of the discovery of sling bullets. So one of the best examples is the site of Kozi Gramadi, which is 20 kilometers north from a site that was possibly founded by Philip II, which is still unproven by present-day Plovdiv for Philippopolis. And there's another site which was discovered up in the mountainside by chance through a field survey north of the Macedonian colony of Kabile, at the turn of the river Tonsus, the site called Peniscitu. This most likely represented place where an actual battle emerged up on the mountainside, and it's very unsurprising for this to happen, given the countless literary accounts about how suitable, how well equipped were the slingers in that sort of terrain, as opposed to hoplites who are much better prepared to fight in an open fight in the fields, on the plain. And recently I discussed already the site of Dubnica on the middle Nestus Valley, with the fact that for decades and decades this site has been trashed by looters with metal detectors, and all of this material appeared in auction houses, and we knew all along that this must have been a place of great importance, because apparently it was taken by the Macedonians, because hundreds and hundreds of sling bullets. And now, thanks to the efforts of our colleagues from the National Museum of History, this site has witnessed a recent excavation, and they finally discovered the same sling bullets that we knew from auction houses. They discovered them in stratified deposits, and they have demonstrated that the site's history is very complicated, with a lot of chronological periods, wonderful material, and apparently in this late 4th century, either the reign of Philip or Alexander, this site witnessed a really heavy Macedonian siege. Most likely the site was taken. Another great case here at Sintike, again in the middle Struma Valley, very important gateway into Thrace, which is over the last 15 years has produced wonderful architecture, starting from early Hellenistic to late antiquity. Again, the sling bullets have played a major part in the picture and used as a way to develop the historical narratives of the site. And again, in Strumica, which is 50 kilometers to the west along the Strumešnica Valley, produced a lot of important sling bullets. So the same happens in the Axios in the northern Macedonia, which of course leads down to the Thessaloniki, and the number of sites I mentioned in my presentation have produced enormous quantity of sling bullets, again testifying to the fact that the Macedonians apparently used this river valley as a way to advance to the northwest in the Balkan area. So on that note, I'd like to end, and I'm open to questions. Thank you.